Shall we start? Very good evening to all of you. I would request all the esteemed speakers for today evening to kindly take their positions on stage for us to begin the evening. Thank you very much, sirs and ma'ams. Well, once again, a very good evening to all of you. I am Lipika, and I'm the founder of Market My Book. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all today for the launch of the book Sassy Tales, Cybercrime Stories and the Law, authored by Ms. Nappinai. We live in a world all the time connected with technology and especially social media. And we live in a world where technology plays a very important role in our lives, both professionally and personally. With the increasing reliance on technology, the threat of cybercrime has become a significant concern. Everything from cyberbullying, stalking, harassment, morphing, deep fakes, sextortions, phishing, identity theft, and even to cyber espionage. The range of crimes committed through the use of technology is staggering and unbelievable. This very timely book, published by Oakbridge Publishing, delves deep into different types of cybercrimes and provides an in-depth understanding of the various methods used by cybercriminals to carry out their illegal activities. It also provides guidance, tips, and checklists on how to protect yourself, your family, and your organization from cybercriminals. A book that will appeal to multiple segments and age groups with insights into the relevant legal laws and remedies. I think also today is a great day, a perfect day to formally release it because it's marked by the Safer Internet Day. I'm sure we all will get to learn a lot more about the book and its message today from our esteemed speakers on the dais and from the author herself. On that note, I would like to invite Mr. Shrish Chandra, the co-founder and director of Oakbridge Publishing, to deliver a welcome address to all of you. Shrish, thank you.
Thank you, Lipika. Honorable Mr. Justice M.M. Sundresh, Mr. R. Venkataramani, Lieutenant General Rajesh Pant, Ms. Nisha Narayanan, Ms. Nappinai, Honorable Judges, Senior Advocates in the audience, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. It is our proud privilege to be the publisher of this latest and timely title, Sassy Tales, by Ms. N.S. Nappinai, and be a part of the release of this book in the presence of Honorable Judges and valued member of legal fraternity. I thank all the dignitaries for gracing this occasion with their august presence, and I congratulate Ms. Nappinai on the release of her second and a very interesting book presented in a unique style in many ways. With cybercrime raising its head to new levels, one way or the other, it is important for us to know how to deal with it in case we happen to be the victims. Sassy Tales is thus a timely and a valuable publication put together by Ms. Nappinai, who not only commands deep knowledge of information technology and the functioning of the cyber world, but is also associated with this practice area as a litigator, trainer, mentor, and a consultant to aid policy formulation. Over the years, legal literature has traditionally been presented in a very technical, complex, and a dry manner, which limits its usage only by the experts, professionals, judiciary, and regulators. Contrary to that, Sassy Tales is about a fresh air and approach to make the information and its comprehension easy, accessible in the society to everyone. It breaks new grounds in the legal literature by using storytelling to explain the evolution, nuances, and remedies to deal with cybercrime, and attempts to create awareness to save us from cybercrime attacks of different kinds and intensities. Because of its unique storytelling approach, clubbed with real-life case studies in easy-to-understand language and packed with relevant questionnaires and activities, it throws itself open to be read and referred by the general public, be it parents, teachers, students, and homemakers. As publishers, we get opportunity to work with different authors from different segments, and we value each of these experiences. However, working with a bright author like Miss Nappinai, who's full of ideas, is brave to experiment, doesn't take a no for an answer easily, and keeps the entire team engaged and on toes, has been a great privilege for all of us at Oakbridge. Her deep knowledge of the domain, her clarity, her meticulousness, her articulation, her imagination, and her command over language is admirable and has left us enriched. I thank her for giving us the opportunity to be her preferred publishing partners in her journey of scripting this book. As a young publisher, it has been our endeavor to publish high-quality works in varied areas. Our obsession with quality, scholarly authors, rigorous editorial processes, and high-quality production standards has earned us a reputation of a worthy publishing outfit within a very short span of time. I hope the readers like this latest offering from the Oakbridge portfolio and derive value from this masterwork, painstakingly put together by Ms. Nappinai. I once again thank all our esteemed guests for making time to attend this release of the book, despite their busy schedule. Wishing everyone stays safe and gets the opportunity to read the book. I thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shreesh. It's time now to release the book, and I request Ms. Nappinai to present a copy of the book to our chief guest, Honorable Mr. Justice M.M. Sundresh. I would request our team to hand over more copies to the esteemed guests on the podium for a photo opportunity. I would now like to invite our chief guest, Honorable Justice M.M. Sundresh, Judge Supreme Court of India, to deliver his address. Justice Sundresh graduated from Loyola College, Chennai, and completed his LLB from Madras Law College. He was enrolled as an advocate in the year 1985, and he worked as government advocate between 1991 to 96. Justice Sundresh was appointed as an additional judge of Madras High Court in March 2009 and confirmed as a permanent judge in March 2011. He was also functioning as the president of the Tamil Nadu State Judicial Academy at that time. Justice Sundresh was elevated as a judge of Supreme Court of India in August 2021 and has delivered many notable judgments. I would now request him to kindly come to the podium and address the audience.
Thank you, Deepika. Learned Attorney General, Sri R. Venkataramani, Dr. Rajesh Pant, Mr. Shri Chandra, Ms. Nisha Narayanan, and the star of the day, Mrs. Nappinai, dignitaries of the dais, a very good evening to all of you. There is an interesting similarity between some of the books and human beings. Both deceive you by their cover and of course surprise you by their content. A book is the contribution of the author after hours of hard work. Everybody loves to read a book, but most of us don't do. Some of us would buy a book, keep it as such, and others would think it's a waste to even undertake that exercise. The greatness of the author lies in making the reader to get interested once a book is opened. In that way, Nappinai has done a wonderful job. I have read the book. When Nappinai called me for this function, I must confess I was a bit reluctant, which I am even today. In the cyber world, I am a bit of an illiterate. But having read the book, I did gain some knowledge. There are two important elements for the human being's development. The first one is knowledge, the other is character. And knowledge is something which can be acquired, when character has to be formed. Now we have a scenario today when knowledge and character are being imported through technology. Few months back, I visited a hotel. Next to my table, there was an young couple with a toddler. They were busy conversing with each other, and thereafter they left the child and went for a walk. The child was a bit agitated because it was feeling restless. The reason being, the father took away the mobile phone which the child was having in his hand. It was demanding that the phone be given to him. And the moment he gave it back, he did not bother his parents. And the child was living in his own world, completely preoccupied and playing around. I am sure that this is a scenario which we are all witnessing every day. It has got its own advantages and disadvantages. In a changing world, in a nucleus family, where the role of a parent, role of a teacher, role of a friend is being taken over by technology, we need to address this issue, which Nappinai has undertaken. So my sincere appreciation to her on that. When I was going through the book, I found that she has done an extraordinary job. The book is not only meant for children, but all of us. Interestingly, the author makes an individual both as a victim and an offender. That's a interesting part, and it's a true sense. I think she has done it exceedingly well. All of us have witnessed it, and we have also done it. Personally, I have also done it. I am a bit of an introvert, but whenever you chat in a mobile phone, in WhatsApp, we tend to interact more, isn't it? And we tend to express more. This happens to all of us. And where do we stop? As an individual, when we interact in person, we do not normally express things. But when you are doing it through internet or online using your WhatsApp, it at times gets personal. Now, if it does happen to a child, what will be the consequence? The beauty of a book is to make the reader to understand what an author wants to convey, which she beautifully encapsulated. Now, this book speaks about the problem through a story. Understanding an issue through a story is the best mode of communication. Now, the first chapter, as Deepika has said about various issues touching upon a cybercrime, be it bullying, hacking, and stalking, scam, morphing, whatever the nomenclature we can give. One has to understand the perils attached to it. In the first story, she gives fictitious names to the characters. A very young girl child, student, a very extrovert character, chippy girl, she pulls the leg of one of her classmates. Nothing wrong with that. She did not mean to hurt him. She honestly believed that it was taken in a very lighter sense. Sportively, he has taken it. But the boy took it very offensive. He felt very offended. But he did not express it. He was recording it, which was taken out of by his mother. Being a protective mother, she wanted to take on this girl. So she created a fictitious character. She named him as Robert. And Robert started interacting with this girl. When the interaction went on, these girls started confiding in him. And she developed a liking for him. She was emotionally attached to him. When she was fully into it, the mother of the boy broke the news and ridiculed her. The girl was completely broken. After making a statement that it seems you wanted me to die, she committed suicide. And the author did not stop with this. She went on to say that how the investigation followed, and thereafter she was brought to book. And I think what is to be understood in this is that even the offender, she was a mother of the child, boy. Her intention was not to make the child to die, the girl. She never thought that this would be the consequence. But the technology facilitated her to undertake that exercise. As a judge, I have seen many number of such cases. I do not want to elaborate much on that, but in one of the cases which really disturbed me, which is similar to the one which has been narrated by her story, an unknown man started interacting with the girl again a schoolgirl. See, he persuaded her by gaining her confidence to send her pictures. She did. She thought the other person was in love with her. She thought he was a young man. But this guy is a middle-aged person, a married man. So he made her to come to his place and revealed him. She couldn't escape because he had all his personal photographs. He blackmailed her, used her, and made his friends to use her. These things do happen, and only few cases would come in open, but many of the cases we may not even know. It may be somebody in their family, we may not know. There are causes, are many. It may be because of our lack of communication with our own children. But this book, hopefully, will make all of us become more responsible when we allow our children to deal with technology. She has done a wonderful job by raising questions and answers. Nobody would like to read a law book, including lawyers and judges at times. But she has really made it very nice by raising it like a question and answers, and thereafter quoting the relevant provisions of various enactments starting from Indian Penal Code and Evidence Act of Vintage Origin to latest information technology. My sincere appreciation to her. I only wish that all of us would go through the book and not stopping with buying it. There is an interesting story in one of the Sangam literature in Tamil, in which a lady poet who is known for her knowledge, she is hugely respected. So she wanted to resolve an ongoing a war which is contemplated by one of the kings. So we went to the king to negotiate on behalf of the other one. The king knew the reason for her visit, so without saying anything, he took her to his arsenal, his armory. He showed it. It was full of daggers, knives, swords, and everything has been kept neat, spick and span. So he wanted to give her an impression, a message, that the other one is too weak to stand up to him. The old lady wittingly said, "What you have shown me is quite impressive, your arsenal. But you know, my friend, the other king, he doesn't have this much of an impressive armory. What he has got is all broken swords, knives and daggers, unlike yours. But therefore, please don't try to take him on. The message is that you have never gone to any war, and he is used to fighting his enemies. So better all of us, I only request again, all of you, please buy and read the book." Once again, my congratulations to her. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Not just in nuclear families, but as a parent and someone who lives with her in-laws, I can assure you that technology is replacing conversations, even with elderly people who are consistently glued to the technology. And both these, age groups are highly susceptible to any sort of crime. I mean, Thank you so much, sir, for your pertinent and insightful views. Our next speaker in line is our guest of honor, Mr. R. Venkataramani, Attorney General of India. Just to introduce him with a few words, Mr. Venkataramani, Attorney General of India, is a senior advocate, Supreme Court of India, and ex-member Law Commission of India. He enrolled in the Bar Council of Tamil Nadu in July 1977 and was designated as the senior advocate by the Supreme Court of India in the year 1997. He was appointed as a member of the Law Commission of India in 2010 and again for a further term in the year 2013. Mr. Venkataramani was appointed as Attorney General of India on 28 September 2022 and assumed office as Attorney General of India on 1st October 2022. He has completed 42 years of practice in Supreme Court and has practiced in various branches of law, prominently constitutional law, arbitration law, law of indirect taxes, corporate and securities law, environmental law, law relating to education, land laws, criminal laws, human rights laws, consumer law, as well as the law relating to services. Sir, I would now request you to address the audience.
I was wondering whether I am equipped enough to introduce a book like this. Merely because the designation is an Attorney General, I don't think it adds to my knowledge to talk about a book like this. Given Nappinai's contribution to this field, I think I was wondering when I entered this auditorium, she deserved a bigger hall and a larger audience and a huge applause. George Orwell, probably when writing 1984 and his Animal Farm, was talking about the thought machine. And the thought machine, probably he thought in some future world, you are somewhere in your protected prison walls, but somebody will read your thoughts. And that was an imagination at that point of time. But I think within less than half a century or so, we have something which has happened, which we never knew would happen to human civilization. So before I begin to talk about this book, which I think is two things I would like to talk about. This book is a first of its kind, a new genre of legal literature. I don't know whether if I would like to pen more books on law, I would be in a position to march alongside Nappinai, because it requires a different kind of a thought process to write a book like this. Probably we can write digests of books, legal literature, or a whole book of precedents in law, or have some commentaries on a statute, so on and so forth. But this is a very significantly different way of introducing a subject. Therefore, it's the first of its kind, a new genre of legal literature. And I think it's at once a blend of law without statutes and stories without legal reproduction. So I find that law without statutes, can anybody write law without statutes? I think on a subject like this particularly. So I'm sure within a very short span of time, this book will receive global attention, just as two books which I have read recently. One is a book titled A World Without Mind by a New York writer. He wrote for New York Times. And another book titled The Internet is Not What You Think It Is. I think it will join that queue very soon and receive a global acclaim. I wish her all the best. as soon as the book reached me by courier, the next day I was traveling and I picked up the book and started reading the book while in the aircraft. And the first thought is, well, I hope I will be able to finish this book, reading the book before the flight, touches down. But I couldn't do that because the book was so absorbing, and the flights of imagination which the book, triggered. I think that's where the book's importance lies. The flights of imagination which a book triggers. And there I think this book occupies a very important space, not only in a legal library, but in the library of human thought. When I mentioned about George Orwell, and as I said, I picked up this book, reading, flipped through the contents of the book, the index, and then, as usual, some of us were fascinated by the bibliography in a book. You turn to the end of the book and look at the bibliography. If it is very huge, then we think the author has probably read so much. And very often it may not be necessarily the index of what the author is writing. The bibliography here was very humble, but they went through some of these references. They're very remarkable references, and how she could probably weave them together and bring the distilled essence of many of those references in the book, I think is very, very interesting, and I must once again appreciate her for weaving the essence of a bibliography into the contents of the book. Now, again, as I flipped through the index, and I was wondering, where does the book take us? Because every writer, every author desires, whether it's fiction or any other genre of literature, the author desires the readers to move somewhere along the mental space of the author. And not that every writing is a didactic writing, but of course, writings which are didactic, moral teachings and ethical teachings. And even through the most concealed of legal fictions, you still find an author wanting to disclose some mind or the other, right? Unlike scientists who doesn't disclose anything except theories of science. So the author would like to probably share something. So I just wondering, what is that Nappinai is wanting to share with us? It was a little difficult for me to comprehend, except to understand it this way, that if the new space created by internet, which is a production of consumption, which is a production and consumption of knowledge. The production and consumption of knowledge, which we have, on the one hand, let's say, gained for ourselves, on the other hand, unleashed upon ourselves. So the gain on the one hand and the unleashing on the other hand, the production and consumption of knowledge. So I was trying to understand, in this vast, uncharted ocean of production and consumption of knowledge, a new space for mental preoccupation has emerged. So it's not really occupation, there's a preoccupation of our mind. So very often when I carry my mobile, I was wondering, what am I carrying? Why am I carrying it at all? I wish I could carry my Bhagavad Gita or a Holy Quran or a Bible, but I don't carry them. I carry my mobile as if it's something, an indispensable part of my mind and the way we live. So on the one hand, we have a gain which has come to us, courtesy, what one calls the revolution in knowledge making. Now, while the internet can be hailed as a great liberator of knowledge, and knowledge as capital, and paved the way for knowledge equality, it has also opened up highways and bylanes where the mind can get lost. So the result of this is the aberrations of mind in the cyberspace. The aberrations of mind in the cyberspace is what we are talking about as cybercrime. As a student of criminology, I always thought, how do we really answer this question? Why do people commit wrongs? Why do people commit crimes? We are not in a position, regardless of the great advances in neurosciences today. Neuroscientists keep engaging themselves on unraveling the secrets of the brain and its functions and why do people behave the way they behave? So the answer to the question, why do people commit wrongs? There are enough opportunities to commit wrongs, reasons to commit wrongs, but the internet, I think, has opened up a new space where the tendency to do something which is probably not in order, the tendency is probably triggered in more than one way than what would have happened in a non-cyber space. So every aspect of our life, economics, politics, our private lives, every aspect of our life is therefore now under the so-called dual feature of the gain and the unleashing. And therefore I thought Nappinai was by a storytelling process, was trying to captivate our mind as to look at where the gain on the one hand and the unleashing on the other hand have to receive not merely legal attention. So we have, throughout the world today, we are still trying to find out whether what would be an ideal data protection bill. We are talking about privacy, right? And we have all kinds of views on that, conflicting views. And as courts begin to engage in all this, we are very often engrossed in those very subtle and sometimes very gross concepts and ideas and how to deal with the new highways and bylanes of the mind. So I suppose what Nappinai has been able to give us is there are different ways of looking at it, not merely through the narrow lens of law and the grammar of law. So something beyond that. And how do we get it done? For every class of audience, from school children to adults, to judges, and to uninformed lawyers like me. So I think it's a great, great introduction, which will probably begin to receive more attention from, probably I would also like to write a book of a storytelling. I just remember, I'll conclude with a few words. Some books remain in your mind as part of your mind, right? Not merely your scriptures or other literatures. And every one of us coming from different language traditions, cherish something or the other which we always like to read again and again, which becomes an indelible part of your mental landscape. So I remember reading long ago a book by an English physicist. The title of the book was Blackfoot Physics. It is about migration of people from across the globe, to Siberia, to South America, North America. And he was talking about this tribe called the Blackfoot. But why physics? But the title of the book was misleading. He was talking about the migration patterns over 4,000 to 5,000 years, and then the culture which grows within a particular tribe or a clan, and how it is so important for identification of the mind, and how we also become the prisoners of our culture, but at the same time culture as a prism which generation after generation we would like to transmit. And as I began to pick up this book, I thought we are now beginning to talk about the migrations of human mind across the different dimensions of mind, and how difficult it's going to be to capture, to deal with the migrations of mind through the narrow spectrum of law and the justice administration. But I'm sure as more of us and most of us engage in this kind of literature, and I think we would be probably able to refine some of the crude aspects of law which grapple in courts, try to find some answers on the grammar of interpretation of statutes. I'm sure with this kind of genre of literature, we'll be able to open up new chapters of understanding the emerging dimensions of mind and its migrations of mind. I sincerely wish, and Nappinai writes more and more, and people like us become her students and as much as possible. I would really like to be her student, her humble student. Thank you very much for inviting me today.
Thank you, sir, for a wonderful and enlightening address, especially for simplifying the reasons for everyone in this hall to go and buy a copy. Our next guest of honor is Lieutenant General Rajesh Pant, National Cyber Security Coordinator and Special Secretary to the Government of India. Lieutenant General Dr. Rajesh Pant is an internationally recognized cybersecurity mentor who is presently tenanting the prestigious appointment of National Cybersecurity Coordinator in the National Security Council Secretariat of India. In this capacity, he is responsible for coordinating all activities across multiple sectors to ensure a secure and resilient cyberspace within the nation. Prior to this appointment, he was the head of Army's cyber training establishment for 3 years. He served in the Army Signals Corps for 41 years, wherein he was awarded 3 times by the President of India for distinguished service of the highest order. Sir, I would request you to take the podium and address the audience.
Thank you, Deepika. I was thinking that my speech might be shorter than your introduction. So, fellow panelists on the high table, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. I think at the outset, let me congratulate Ms. Nappinai for a very creative work that she has produced. For those who have not read the book, the smart-looking girl that you see there is the mascot of CyberCyty Foundation that she heads. And the name is Sassy. And I'm told the hairstyle resembles the author. I've never been in the midst of so many judges, frankly, because what I'm told is that the judges don't make the rules, they only implement them. And it's something like umpires in a cricket match. People go to watch the cricket match, not the umpires. So you hardly see any judges around, but it's a privilege actually to be here amidst your midst. And the last 2 addresses that we've heard have been absolutely outstanding. The slice of intellectual philosophy that one has heard has been very impressive. Thank you, sir. Today, as was said earlier, is a very special day, Safer Internet Day. And it is celebrated worldwide on the second month, the second week, and the second day. So like today, Tuesday, 7th of February, and it is being celebrated across 190 countries around the world. And there is a theme this time as to want to talk about it. That's the theme this time, and it relates directly to what the work that you've done. And since morning, this is the 3rd function I'm attending related to the Safer Internet Day. In the morning in Ambedkar Center, we inaugurated a television channel for cybersecurity launched by the Cyber Peace Foundation. And a large number of school children were there, and the message that was being sent was that instead of watching something that may not be very useful to the mind, at least watch something constructive which will help you in the digital age that we live in. And then in the evening, we've launched within the Quad, within India, US, Australia, and the UK and Japan, we've launched a cyber challenge. For those who are interested, you can go to www.cyberchallenge.tech, tech as in TECH, and you'll find that it's a 2-month challenge which will culminate in April, where there's free education being given. And at the end, there will be, of course, some sort of competition. So lots is happening. And final, of course, the toast of the evening is the launch of this book, Sassy Tales on cybercrime stories and the law. Sassy means lively, bold, and full of spirit. And I think Ms. Nappinai and the CSassy both represents that. And as we've discussed, the storytelling approach that she's taken And I was fortunate to write the foreword for it, and probably one of the first few who encountered this book. And I really like the style of, if you see the way the chapters are laid out, if you see the language, that there's something about grandma's eyes, and there's a lot of these nicknames and words. It makes it very nice to read. And this advisor, CSassy, is there. I think every 40-50 pages telling you, what is the right way of doing it. As the Attorney General and the others have expressed, cyber law is there's a lot of turbulence going on in the decision makers, if I may say so. Whether we consider cybercrime as a crime and let IPC deal with it, or whether we consider a separate Cybersecurity Act where we talk of the new age cryptocurrencies and ransomware, and then there is an exercise going on in the Government of India of revising the IT Act, where they are talking of a new Digital India Act. The IT rules are also coming out in the interim. IPC 2013 revision is there. There is a telecom bill which is undergoing evaluation, and the personal data protection bill, which is oscillating between personal and non-personal data. So lots is happening in the legal field in the Government of India, and I hope things get sorted out first. But the main and the important thing is that from the national security point of view, and I'll come to crime in a minute, when we see the domains around us of land, air, sea, and cyber, every day we may not be on sea and air, definitely. We are here in land. But on cyber domain, we are there every day. I mean, the moment you open your mobile, as you were saying, you have entered the cyber domain. And how do we protect our citizens, or netizens as some people call them, or our critical infrastructure from external and internal threats in the cyber domain? For all the other domains, we've got organized structures. So if we talk of land, you have the army for external threat, you have the police for internal threat. Similarly for the Navy, Maritime, Air Force, etc. But in the cyber domain, today we have disparate structures. So at the level and the place from where I come from, there's a lot of discussion presently being carried out as to how do we now create some sort of organizations to tackle the threats in cyberspace. Cybercrime is something, and for those who saw me 3-4 years back, my hair was not that white. There are 3,500 cases reported in our portal cybercrime.gov.in every day. These are the people losing money, and these are the people who know that there is a portal. I'm sure 3 to 4 times of the people are actually losing money every day. And these are the widowers, these are the pensioners, these are the old age people. And the prosecution rate is abysmally low. I don't want to give the percentage because it is in single digits. So one has to see as to why is this system not working in terms of, because the criminals are taking advantage of all the loopholes. They're transferring money in UPI, taking it out from ATM. They also know somebody is after them. So this is an area which is extremely important, and I'm so glad that this book is at least creating a consciousness, because in our generation we are the digital immigrants, all of us. The new people are the digital natives, and it is their world, and we want them to have a safe, open, free internet in which there can be national and economic prosperity. I don't want to take too long. I just want to end on a lighter quote that somebody wrote about a book that I really enjoyed the book and I laughed through it. The next time I'll read it. And the last one is just before coming here, I checked up from Amazon and wanting to buy this book, and they said only one left. So congratulations. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for a very insightful address. I would now like to invite our next special speaker, Ms. Nisha Narayanan, Director and CEO, Red FM and Magic FM. Nisha Narayanan is a media aficionado and experienced leader with a track record of 26 plus years in broadcast media industry. A Chevening scholar in broadcast journalism, she started her career as a journalist with All India Radio, and she's currently heading a she is the CEO at Red FM and Magic FM. She's been monumental in taking the business to the new frontiers and has successfully launched new verticals and built the Red FM brand into a powerful one. She has also spearheaded setting up of radio stations across markets, different regions in the country, making Red FM one of the largest radio networks and a brand leader with social impact in the country. She's also authored several articles on radio policy and regulation, and she writes regularly for mainstream media as well as specialist journalists. Ma'am, I would request you to take the podium and address the audience.
Thank you, Deepika. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be speaking on this esteemed panel today. First, I'd like to extend my heartiest congratulations to Nappinai for her book, Sassy Tales, although I'd like to mention that I've not had a chance to read the book as I received it only last night. Not completely. I've been able to skim through it, and I hope that during the weekend I can read the full book and have a better understanding of crime stories and the laws associated with them. I personally feel that cybercrime is much larger in its capacity and the threat that it poses to individuals, businesses, and society as a whole, which is a grave reality. There are several reports out there that suggest that 60 to 80% of Indian women face some form of online abuse, and it is not easy to get the exact figure because a lot of them are not even reported. And we do know that women have always faced harassment at home, at workplaces, in public spaces, but the internet and social media platforms have exponentially increased the opportunities for twisted individuals to engage in abusive behavior towards women. It is important for governments, technology companies, and civil society organizations to take steps to address online abuse and protect the rights of women. This can be done through education and awareness-raising campaigns, the development of technical solutions to identify and remove harmful content, and the implementation of strong legal framework to hold perpetrators accountable. It's in this context that Nappinai's book becomes significant because Sassy Tales gives readers a very useful toolkit for tackling cyber crimes, and she suggests effective remedies and lists the provisions in Indian law that we can use to fight against cybercrime, and it also gives us the skills and knowledge to survive, navigate, and flourish these digital spaces. She spells out in the course of her book that there are several ways where all of us, and especially women, can protect ourselves from online abuse and harassment. This can be carried out through thorough reporting mechanisms, change of privacy settings, improving digital literacy, and law enforcement. And she's also pointed out there are a number of provisions in the Indian law that protect women online. Section 79 of the Information Technology Act 2000 requires intermediaries to exercise due diligence with regard to content providers and warn them not to upload or display any information that is defamatory, harmful, obscene, or harassing. So the IT Act also has provisions in Section 66 and 67 to deal with cybercrime against women and children. Now, having said all of this, let me also mention that while protecting the rights of women and children online, and in the process of making internet safe for individuals, there is always the danger of tipping over into censorship and the suppression of dissenting voices as well. Well, this brings me to the strongest tool at our disposal that I believe we can leverage to create awareness, which is radio. I come from the field of radio, so I cannot help not talk about it. And radio has the last mile approach. It is hyper-local, it is hyper-vocal, and it can reach a wide audience, including those without internet access, by broadcasting educational programs and public service announcements, which includes cybercrime and the information related to it. And as a radio evangelist, I firmly believe in the power of this medium to educate and inform people about this issue. So at Red FM, over the last 6-7 years, we've highlighted the menace of cybercrime with a very dedicated radio show and podcast called Hidden Files. The show is curated with the help of top cybercrime experts from across the country who share their opinions and offer tips on how to stay safe in the digital world. And we've had such an overwhelming response 7 years ago that this is season 7 that is really going on. And I think there is this need to do this continuously, and most media organizations need to embrace this content as part of their regular content and not just take it up as a campaign. Because the youth, I feel, is the most vulnerable to digital crimes, also because of the kind of access that they have to the internet, and therefore a 360-degree approach to educate them, to empower them, not only through radio but also through television, through books like Sassy Tales. All kinds of media should be approached and utilized to educate maximum number of people against such crimes. Cyber attacks have surged to threefold, and I believe it is to 1.16 million. I got it off the net. I'm not so sure about the figure. Last year in India, and the first step on way to safety is to be very rightly informed. So hidden files is a very humble step towards that effort. Let me just conclude by saying that protecting women online abuse and harassment, while is an absolute necessity, it is but a complex and multifaceted challenge that requires the cooperation of multiple stakeholders, including government, technology companies, and civil society organizations. And let me once again thank Nappinai for giving us compelling stories about cybercrime in India with very little legal and technical jargons in the book, and educating us in very clear and simple language on how best we can protect ourselves from the daily threats on the internet. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for your enlightening and eloquent address, ma'am. I would now like to invite Ms. Nappinai, our author and star of the evening, to deliver author's response. She's asked me to keep it very short. So I would just say that Ms. Nappinai is a Supreme Court advocate and founder of CyberSassy. The CS on the cover is in the CSassy is actually a short form for the brand. She's an amicus curiae before Supreme Court in Prajwala versus Union of India to formulate methodologies to remove child sexual abuse material and violent videos of offense against women from online platforms, and an alumna of Stanford, CDDRL, Chevening UK, and IVPL USA. Nappinai trains judges, police, armed forces, and intelligence agencies at national and state academies, and has addressed the sessions at national and international conferences. Nappinai is a prolific writer, and you must pick the book to understand it better, who oft contributes on leading publications and has authored seminal books on cyber laws titled Technology Laws Decoded. She has contributed a chapter on social media in Nani Palkiwala's Festschrift. Her recent publication is on cyber safety titled Sassy Tales, Cybercrime Stories and the Law. Nappinai was an expert member, Tamil Nadu State Child Policy Committee for formulating the cyber security aspects under the state child policy. She is an advisor to many non-profit organizations supporting social causes. And with that, I'll ask Ms. Nappinai to take. Yes.
Mr. Venkataramani suggested that we call her cyber security evangelist also.
Oh, so yes. So I would request the cyber security evangelist to take the podium and address the audience here.
Thank you all so much. My Lord's Justice Sundresh, Mr. Venkataramani, thank you all so much for those wonderful, wonderful words. Lieutenant General Pant, I have to thank you especially before I start for not just the wonderful address today, but also the very encouraging foreword. For any author who starts, I can tell you it doesn't matter if I write 10 more books also, I'm sure I'll always start this way with absolute trepidation about, is this book really going to hit the mark? Is it going to be well received? You know, what is the reader going to think? And when encouraging forewords and testimonials come in at a pre-publication stage, that's what encourages us the most. And I think Nisha put herself in the hot spot today. Nisha, you're going to now have a show on Sassy Tales also.
Of course.
Yeah. So thank you so much for accepting my invite at short notice and for being here and for your wonderful words. All of you have really hit the nail on the head in terms of a lot of things about the book. Without taking too much time, I'm going to limit my address to the journey. And as I started off by saying about the end of the journey, where people like Lieutenant General Pant put me at ease, saying it was a worthy initiative, it was a worthy cause, and it was good that I actually took it up, you know, and I didn't go too far off the mark in terms of what I intended and what the outcome was. So that was really encouraging. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every person who had given their pre-publication testimonials on this. And Justice Sikri graced the occasion, so I really want to thank him for the review post-publication on this, and a gentleman, a lawyer down south, who also wrote such an eloquent piece on that. I am starting off with all the thank yous. I know the vote of thanks will also follow, but it is only right that I personally thank each and every one of you for being here, and for those who are watching this online. In fact, a lot of people shared, sir, already comments about each of your address and how wonderful it was whilst the program is still on also. So here is the journey. As Lieutenant General Pant rightly pointed out, this was sort of like, you know, supposed to be the sassy, insouciant, bold mascot of the thing. And the idea for the book actually came in 2016. People often ask me why I go for fellowships, even now, you know, because my last fellowship at Stanford CDDRL was in 2019, fairly, you know, at an older age, so to say. And I tell them that, you know, there is no limit to learning. So one of my biggest learnings came from the Chevening Fellowship, which was in 2016. So as part of the fellowship, they expose you. And I was there for the Cybersecurity Fellowship. So they expose you to not just the processes that they follow in terms of cybersecurity, but primarily to also the threats and vulnerabilities there. As a practitioner, as a specialist who has been doing this work for many decades already, I assumed we knew it all. But you don't know it all until you actually see the volume and impact of cyber crimes, particularly on softer targets. Nisha mentioned about women and children, but I have actually tried to cover issues in terms of gender in a non-binary way. So often LGBTQ plus and more are also very soft targets. So whenever, and people who are in high positions of power, you have now heard the Supreme Court of India talk about how they are being targeted frequently. You have cyber threats to the infrastructure. That is always there and is going to continue. But the recent trend where without any filters, without moral you know, evaluation, you have people go online and share things thoughtlessly, not just about whether it is appropriate for them to share what they're sharing or not, but also about what is the impact on the victim. Justice Sundresh very eloquently gave a short version of the fictional story. As you guess, it is a real story. And I've given the case law also, which it is based on. Of course, my stories are all fictionalized and of course with creative license of exaggeration. But the first idea for this book came when I had a meeting with the National Crime Agency in UK during my Chevening program, and what they shared with us about the child sexual abuse material that's online and the volume of it. What started, New York Times reports it as a few thousand in 1994. Within a few years, it's grown to millions. During the COVID lockdown, 80% of crimes that the Indian law enforcement agencies detected were with respect to the accessing and downloading of child sexual abuse content. So the necessity for children to be forewarned about, you know, one, that there is a human being on the other side of the screen. They're all talking to a digital screen. You know, when you are in a room like this, there are certain ways you will conduct yourself with propriety. Imagine yourself in the privacy of your home, and more importantly, in the privacy probably of your bedroom, with just a computer in front of you. you start assuming you're alone. You don't realize there is a person, and in many cases, unfortunately, which I've come across and handled, persons on the other side. Oftentimes, pornographic sites are fed child sexual abuse material from live feeds, from computers where the victims do not even know that the computers have been taken control of by a third party. And sometimes they share thinking, as Justice Sundresh pointed out that one instance, they assume that they are talking to a peer. When you're speaking to a peer, you always let your guard down. And when you're on digital domains, it's called the disinhibition theory. Suler gives it that name. In fact, in my first book, I call it the disassociation theory. And I equate it with Macbeth and Lady Macbeth and how she could orchestrate a murder because she did not have blood in her hands. And if you look at the soliloquy later, and that's what I start the chapter with, you'll see that she actually starts dreaming of blood in her hand, because she realizes that just because you have orchestrated a murder, you can't get away from the consequences of it. And that's why I use the disassociation theory, because often you will see that perpetrators do not even realize what they were doing. They don't realize the consequences. Recently, when I gave a session for youngsters just a couple of days back, many of them, obviously victims, were coming and asking me, but what about our emotional impact, ma'am? We were emotionally, frayed after this happened to us. So does law give us protection, or will they punish them for emotional damage? I said, no, the law works in a particular way, and I explained to them, but understand that whenever a law is framed, they do take into account the fact that this impacts an individual, and a law is framed accordingly. Whereas, for instance, a murder is an offense against society because it just doesn't impact an individual, but it impacts the entire society. And cyber crimes are like that. So I just had this one small portion which I wanted to read, particularly because Mr. Venkataramani had also talked about different spaces. And this is a story on the metaverse. It was a do-or-die situation. She had been through this often, but the rush of adrenaline, palpitation, and butterflies in her stomach resurfaced still, each time. Possibly that was the drive to keep coming back despite the stress. She was alert and quick to react to the assaults on her. She realized that today's game was somehow different from normal. Many times she had faced multiple opponents, but today it seemed like there was concerted action. They were all ganging up on her. It was no longer pitching her wits to stay alive, only against one foe. She was certainly not going to back out. She ruled the gaming world. The metaverse and its offerings were therefore like heaven to this habitual gamer who was using her expertise in gaming and online multiplayer games often. The virtual reality, however, made X feel that the assault was real and it was traumatic. Here she was in the midst of her ideal world. At least that's what she thought till the attack started. There was nothing worse than killing or maiming your spirit. So this is actually how a story starts. And we hear often a lot of, colloquialisms when we speak about cybercrime. One of the earliest was revenge porn, which was actually just sextortion. Extortion using sexual imagery which somebody may get from another person or of another person. In this story, I've talked about, and this particular incident which I just read out is what is called as griefing, which is where people gang up on an online game to make sure that one of the characters is killed. And it goes on to talk about how when an online character is maimed, the person who owns the avatar actually feels it as if it is an attack on themselves. So here was the journey which started in 2016, and I had many days of sleepless nights, and thankfully we were at the Defense Academy, which is very safe, so I kept walking around thinking about what to do. And that's when I came up with the name of CyberCassy, because I'm a criminal lawyer I started practice as a criminal lawyer, as Justice Sundresh knows from our days in Chennai. So I know for a fact that when a victim faces problems, they don't reach out to authority figures. They definitely don't reach out to lawyers to begin with. So we have to wait in line. And they don't even reach out to parents. They always reach out to a friend for help. It may be a parent or a relative, but that's incidental. So when the friend is not well equipped to respond effectively, be a good first responder, they can mislead the victim. And the victim gets into more trouble instead of finding their remedies. Often, because of the ignorance in terms of how laws work, I've even heard practitioners say, oh, revenge porn is not an offense in India because there is no section which has a heading saying revenge porn. So if as practitioners we can make this mistake, imagine a friend. So CyberSassy was a name I coined there, in fact, at the Defense Academy. So thank you for the Chevening Fellowship on this. It definitely had a very long-term impact, and this is one of them. I'm so glad that my compatriots from the British High Commission are here for this event, and they also showed their solidarity for my first book launch also. So that was the first leg, which then moved on to penning the book actually. Though a lot of ideas were going around in my head, as with every practitioner, I was getting stuck in the rut of everyday work, and that was a lot because I was wearing multiple hats. So I thanked the Prime Minister for the lockdown, because the minute lockdown was announced, instead of taking a holiday or a break, I did a whole week of all-nighters and got the skeleton of CyberSassy's Sassy Tales book done. So that was how the book evolved, and then it went through a lot of modifications, and it did get a bit delayed because of the extended COVID issues, and now we do have the book in front of us. What was the journey and what is the intent and purpose of the book? It very simply was threefold. One is not to blame the victim. Every time somebody does something, it could be sharing the imagery, as you said in that story, where the girl did not know it was a 50-something on the other side. It could be clicking on that link which somebody sent to you in an SMS and you end up with your bank account being cleaned out. It could be sharing that OTP. So you have from personal to financial crimes, everything covered in this. And the whole idea is stop blaming the victim, stop preaching to the victim. I'm a very insouciant person, and probably, that bit of our, all of us still remember the truant child in us, right? Somebody tells us, no, don't touch that. It'll burn, fire burns. We'll immediately want to touch that fire to see, does it really burn? I was one of those children, and I still probably am to a large extent. So I could relate to the millennials to that extent to say, I'm not going to tell you do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. By these stories, I try to explain these are all the threat scenarios. You could keep yourself safe because you know this is a threat scenario, but perchance you fall victim. And I'm not saying this only for millennials, it's for each of us. In fact, the whole premise of the book is we have given up our authority. All of us predominantly in this hall, except for a few, are digital immigrants, as Lieutenant General Pant said. The digital natives, however, rule the technology world. So we have already given up our authority to them. You buy a new phone, do you sit and formulate it? No. You immediately catch the youngest person in the house and say, hey, get it done, because they can do it a lot faster than you would. And thereafter, they are supposed to walk you through the process in learning how to use that phone. And this we do with every device, everything new that comes up on the digital domain. So when you have given up your authority in the usage, how do you expect them to listen to you when you tell them, no, this is very unsafe, don't do that? They'll say, Arey, you don't know anything about it. You didn't even know about this technology. I taught you. What do you know about the threats? So therefore, it was important to carry these stories about the threats in a way which they feel that it's coming from them, and therefore the little lively cover in the front. The second thing was to dispel these myths that there is no law to protect you. And therefore, as Justice Sundresh rightly said, it was meant for every single law practitioner also. One, usage as users, and two, as practitioners and for law enforcement, to say don't think there is no remedy. Often victims simply do not take forward their complaints because they think there is no remedy. Second, of course, is their lack of trust in the system. So it's important for us to reinstate that trust in the system. And I'm one of those, people call me an eternal optimist because I keep advocating everybody to use the system. So every story ends with this resource that the government has created to say, please go and file your complaints on cybercrime.gov.in. So therefore, the whole idea is that, one, keep yourself safe. Perchance if you fall victim, don't blame yourself. Please take the remedies that law provides you and make sure that the criminal is apprehended and prosecuted. Because if you don't do it, several more victims will fall prey. Because you thought it was shameful because your bank account was cleaned out, you keep silent. What is the outcome? That person is going to pull the same crime on hundreds of thousands more. So by your one complaint, you could have actually probably stopped it. And that's why the next step of the book was to encourage people to use the system. And the third bit, as all the speakers rightly pointed out, is the process of deterrence. We all talk about child safety online. How many of us speak about children being the perpetrators? How many of us even acknowledge that children are criminals? How many times have I had children when, Bombay was one of, Mumbai as it is now called, was one of the first to introduce what we call the Cyber Safety Week. And in that we used to address sessions for students, and the system, judges, prosecutors, lawyers, and in housing societies, for industry, everything. Every time I've addressed a session for students, and I'm talking about 2003, what is the first question that would come to me? Is hacking a crime? Is it okay if I hack just my neighbor's Wi-Fi? I'm not talking about something big, Or is it okay if I hack XYZ? And I met a 17-year-old who had hacked into government infrastructure. Not just of this nation, but of a neighboring nation. So it all boils down to this, that they do not know where the lines are drawn in terms of, one, what is a prank or a crime. So you have actually stories which set out what is a prank and when does it become a crime. Stop before it becomes a crime is the issue there. And then they do not know what is actually a crime, because if things are not spelt out, and they don't go around reading law books, so they don't know whether they're committing a crime or not. And we refuse to acknowledge that criminals or children can be criminals. And therefore it's important. India is a young India. And therefore I felt it was really important to highlight this aspect, that we need to protect our children not just from crime, but against their own actions, from becoming criminals. And that's what the book's journey is all about. And finally, so we may all have faced this question in, at some point of time as practitioners or, or even on the desk. We have those lovely leather-bound books in our library. So the number of times clients have walked into the office and asked, ma'am, have you read all the books? Is not funny. Those are reference books. They're not meant to be read from cover to cover all the time, right? So the way I envisaged the cover was therefore this. This is a book about law. It is meant to create awareness in you, not just about cyber threats and vulnerabilities, but also about the remedies in law. So as a practitioner, when you're facing different kinds of problems in this domain, and each of us are going to have those kind of cases coming up which are going to be more and more complicated, at least having a signpost saying, no, you do have remedies, gives us a lot of courage. Thereafter, depending on the facts of the case, the remedies will be formulated. But then the whole idea was not to have a nice leather-bound, very, impressive but very scary law-looking kind of book. So the idea was that each of us will think, oh, this looks like light reading. Why don't we just pick up and read it? As Justice Sundresh, Mr. Venkataramani, Lieutenant General Pant and Nisha mentioned, this is meant for all of us to actually take it and read it and not just make it for excellent interior decoration. So on that note, thank you all for being here and thank you all for bearing with me. I think I did get slightly longer than I anticipated. And I do hope that this book helps keep at least some of us safe and helps us to find our remedies. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your stirring and encouraging address. I would now finally request Vikesh Dhyani, the director and publisher of Oakbridge Publishing, to deliver a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Lipika. Very good evening to all of you. I think Nappinai ma'am has already done my job easier. She's already thanked everyone. I just need to repeat what she mentioned, not the entire speech though. But on a more formal note, Justice Sundresh, Mr. Venkataramani, Lieutenant General Pant, Nisha, and our author, and as Mr. Venkataramani mentioned, the cybersecurity evangelist, Nappinai ma'am, Justice Sikri, who was here. He's done a wonderful book review on Bar and Bench for the book. Please do read it. Eminent jurists, bureaucrats, diplomats, a friend from legal, corporate, media, and the academic world. It's been an honor and a privilege for all of us to have published and released this wonderful, light read, but full of information book, Sassy Tales, Cybercrime Stories and the Law. At Oakbridge Publishing, it is always our endeavor to create high quality works that help professionals, academia, corporates, other law and policy makers. And we see ourselves as a strong value adding bridge between knowledge creators and knowledge seekers. This book is a step in that direction. It also actually transcends the legal community, and it is actually a general reader's book, a mass market book, and that's why the very interesting cover. Initially, I'm also a marketer, so I was a little concerned when I saw the cover, but when I was explained the logic behind it, I could totally agree to it. I think the book will certainly be very, very useful for all parents, teachers, general readers, as I mentioned, lawyers, law enforcement agencies, and other professionals. Ms. Nappinai has used real-life case studies and examples to illustrate various methods used by cyber criminals to harm us, and she meticulously provides practical tips, suggestions, and legal remedies on how to protect yourself, your family, and your organization. I would like to thank Ms. Nappinai for her painstaking research, hard work, and dedication in bringing this book to life and considering us as a publisher. On behalf of the entire Oakbridge team and our author, I would like to thank all our guests on the dais and all our esteemed delegates.
I'm sorry to interrupt. On that note, if I may just take the liberty of something to sweeten the scary tales. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, it is a leather bound indeed. Thank you so much. And here is a little something for, as Shrish said, for putting up with all the difficult times for Oakbridge.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. So I'll just take a minute more, and so thank you so much. I hope you will enjoy reading, recommending, and gifting this book to all your loved ones. We will have a short session where you can get the book signed by Ms. Nappinai. She'll be available after this event. And finally, I would like to also thank our wonderful host Lipika, who graciously agreed to host the event for us. I wish you all a great evening ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
autographs.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Lovely meeting you.
I'm giving you my card.
Sir, yes,
I'll also give some sound bites for your
wonderful.
cyber wala.
Yes, okay,
Amit
okay.
Dubey used to be.
Yes, yes, I will do it.